going to study reported speech next week. When you go home, search for the YouTube channel Learn English Online and watch the lesson.
Okay, teacher. Hello, how are you doing today? Are you doing well? That's great. So as you can see, today's lesson is about reported speech. In this video, we're going to deal with part number 1 of the lesson of reported speech. There are still 2 other parts which we are going to deal with in next videos. So, are you ready to learn? Let's start. We're going to start first by the types of speech that we have in English. There are 2. We have direct and indirect or reported speech. Now, let's define each of these types. Direct speech is the representation of the actual or exact words that someone said, whereas reported or indirect speech is the representation of the content of what someone said rather than his or her exact words. Now let's see these definitions in practice. We're going to deal with the first example. Here we have 2 conversations. The first conversation is between Henry and Mary. During the conversation, Henry says,
"I have an exam tomorrow."
The second conversation is between Mary and Emily. Mary talks to Emily about her conversation with Henry, and she says,
Henry says, "I have an exam tomorrow."
In this conversation, Mary uses the same or the exact words of Henry when she says, "I have an exam tomorrow." So this sentence is what we call direct speech. Why is it direct speech? Simply because Mary uses the same words, the actual words that Henry used in the first conversation. Let's now look at example number 2. In this example, we have again 2 conversations. Conversation number 1 is the same conversation we had in example number 1. It's again between Henry and Mary. And conversation number 2, again it's between Mary and Emily. But now, during the conversation, Mary has made some changes in the words used by Henry in the first conversation. So, let's listen to what Mary says in this conversation.
Henry says he has an exam tomorrow.
In this conversation, Mary doesn't use the exact words of Henry. She has made some changes. Henry's sentence is, "I have an exam tomorrow." But Mary's new sentence is, Henry says he has an exam tomorrow. So as you can see, there are some changes, but the meaning, of course, is the same. So Mary's sentence is what we call reported speech. Why is it reported, not direct speech? Because Mary has made some changes. and she hasn't used the same words of Henry as we have in conversation number 1. Now let's talk about the main differences that exist between direct speech and reported speech. In direct speech, we use the exact words of the speaker. There's no change of the words. But do we use the exact words of the speaker in reported speech? Of course not. We make some changes. In this video, we're going to discuss some of the important changes that happen when we change a sentence from direct into reported speech. The next difference is the quotation marks. In direct speech, they are very important. But do we need them in reported speech? The answer is no. Now let's talk in details about the main changes that happen when we shift from direct speech to reported speech. In fact, the changes depend on the reporting verb we make use of. The reporting verb is the verb we use to introduce the speech. There are many examples of reporting verbs. These include the verb say, the verb tell, the verb ask, etc. In this video, we're going to focus on the verb say, but in the next videos, we're going to see more examples of reporting verbs. Back to the changes that happen when we shift from direct into reported speech. Well, as I said in the beginning, the changes depend on the reporting verb we make use of, and exactly the tense of the reporting verb. The reporting verb can be in the present tense as it can be in the past tense. As for the past tense, this is something we're going to discuss in the next videos. So the focus in this video is the present tense. And what we mean by the present tense here is the different tenses of the present, like the present simple, the present continuous, etc. So now let's look at the changes that happen when we shift from direct into reported speech, and the reporting verb used is in the present tense. The first important change here is the subject pronoun. Sometimes in direct speech, we have the example of the subject pronoun I. But in reported speech, sometimes we need to refer to the speaker, who is different. And here we can use the subject pronoun he or she. The next important change is the subject-verb agreement. What do we mean by subject-verb agreement? Let's study this example. Can we say, I is a student? We cannot. I is. This is incorrect. The correct answer is I am. So, thanks to the subject-verb agreement, that we know that the correct answer is I am, not I is. As we can't say he am, we say he is. We cannot say you is, but we say you are. Why? It's because of the subject-verb agreement. The next change is the object pronoun. When the speaker is different, the object pronoun me in direct speech can be changed into him or her in reported speech. But if the speaker is the same, so there is no change. We keep it as it is. So there isn't a fixed rule, but this depends on the context. Another important change is the possessive adjective. Possessive adjectives also change depending on the context we have. The last important change is the reflexive pronoun. When shifting from direct to reported speech, reflexive pronouns can change too, depending on the context. Now, let's see these changes in practice. So here we start with example number 1, the sentence we have in direct speech is, Henry says, I have an exam tomorrow. Do you remember this sentence? That's good. So let's talk now about some important details in the sentence. As you can see, we have got the quotation marks, the subject pronoun I, and the verb have. Now to change this sentence from direct into reported speech, we pay attention to the following. First, we start by Henry says. Says here is the reporting verb, and it is in the present tense. Next is the colon. We can use the colon or comma after the reporting verb in direct speech, but we use neither the colon nor the comma after the reporting verb in a reported speech. Next is the quotation marks. Do we need to use the quotation marks in reported speech? Of course not. Let's finish the rest of changes. The subject pronoun I is changed into he in reported speech. Why? Because he refers to Henry. In direct speech, the speaker, I, that was Henry. But now the speaker is Mary. So Mary can't use the subject pronoun I without change, because I refers, as I said before, to Henry. Next is the verb have. We change it into has. Why do we change have into has? This is a matter of the subject-verb agreement. In other words, we cannot say he have. So the correct answer is he has. So now respect the subject-verb agreement. After this change, we have the part left in the direct speech, an exam tomorrow. Here, as you can notice, there are no changes to make. So the sentence I have an exam tomorrow, which is direct speech, it becomes, as reported speech, Henry says he has an exam tomorrow. Now let us look at example number 2. In direct speech, we have a sentence that is said by Nora. So Nora says, I am painting my parents' room all by myself. In this sentence, we use the quotation marks. We have the subject pronoun I. We have the verb I'm painting. And here we have the auxiliary and the main verb. We have the possessive adjective my and the reflexive pronoun myself. So now let's look at the changes that happen when we shift from direct to reported speech. So we start with Nora says. Says here is the reporting verb, as we said in the first example, and it is in the present tense. So we need to pay attention to the changes we talked about before. Do you remember them? That's good. After Nora says, we need to pay attention to this part, which is the colon. Do we need a colon in reported speech? Of course we don't. What about the quotation marks? We don't need the quotation marks in reported speech, but they are important in direct speech. Next is the subject pronoun I. In direct speech, we change it. So the new word is she. Why she? Simply because she refers to Nora. After the subject pronoun, we have the part of the verb, I'm painting. Here we make a change. We change am into is. Why this change? It's again because of the subject-verb agreement. Can we say she am painting? Of course we can't. The correct answer is she is painting. The next change is the possessive adjective my. We change it into her. Why? Because my refers to Nora. So we have a different speaker now. That's why we use her to refer to Nora. Next is parents' room all by. So this part here, there is no change. And the last part which we need to change is the reflexive pronoun myself. Myself refers again to Nora. So the correct answer is herself. So the new sentence now in a reported speech is Nora says she is painting her parents' room all by herself. The first part of reported speech ends here. Just as a kind of summary, in today's lesson we have been talking about the two types of speech, direct and reported or indirect speech. We have seen some examples for each case, and we have been talking about the main differences and the changes that occur when we shift from direct into reported or indirect speech. And we have tackled some examples, 2 examples exactly. Hopefully that you have understood what we have been talking about. And as I said earlier, this is just part number 1 of the lesson. There are 2 other parts which we're going to tackle in the coming videos. Try to watch the video many times and take notes so that you can get a clear idea about today's lesson. And if it happens that you still have some questions about today's lesson, please don't hesitate to share them with us, either through an email or just a comment below. And if you believe that this video is interesting, please share it with others so that they can learn from it too. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if this is your first visit, and to like the video too. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.